I flipped out on my brother for secretly draining our family's money. Before everything exploded, our home was already cracking under quiet pressure. I had become the one who paid the bills, calmed arguments, and pretended our struggles were temporary. My younger brother looked harmless and carefree, yet small signs began to disturb me. Unexplained expenses, secretive behavior, and sudden luxuries. When I confronted him during dinner, my anger erupted and tore through our fragile peace. Our parents tried to silence the conflict. Relatives judged me, and my brother withdrew into silence. The short story ended the moment I discovered hidden bank statements that revealed a much darker truth than I had imagined. When I lifted his mattress the next morning, dust rose into my throat and made me cough, but I didn't stop searching. Beneath folded blankets and old notebooks, I found envelopes stuffed with printed statements, receipts, and handwritten notes. My fingers felt numb as I flipped through them, realizing the spending wasn't random. It was systematic, deliberate, and growing. It felt like staring at evidence from a crime scene where the victim was our own family. I sat on the floor for a long time, listening to the apartment wake up around me. The pipes groaned, the neighbor's baby cried, and the smell of frying onions drifted from the kitchen. My brother's door stayed shut. I wondered whether he was sleeping or pretending. I wondered whether I was about to destroy him or finally save him. When he came out, his eyes were red but defiant. He looked older than his 22 years, as if he had aged overnight. I held up the papers without speaking. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he sighed and walked past me toward the kitchen, as if confession were an inconvenience rather than a necessity. He told me he didn't plan to stop. He said the money made him feel alive, respected, important. He said he felt invisible in a family where everyone praised my sacrifices and ignored his frustration. I felt a strange mix of rage and pity. I wanted to scream that admiration never paid rent, that resentment never justified theft, but my voice came out softer than I expected. Our parents joined us. My mother started crying again. My father demanded explanations, yet his anger felt delayed, filtered through exhaustion. My brother accused them of raising him with expectations they never fulfilled. He said they taught him to dream big, but offered him nothing but guilt and limitations. My father shouted back that dreams required discipline, not theft. Their voices collided in the narrow kitchen like waves hitting rocks. Days passed in heavy silence. My brother avoided me, but he didn't apologize either. Relatives kept calling, offering opinions that felt like verdicts. Some said I should forgive him because he was young. Others said I had humiliated him unnecessarily. Nobody asked whether I was tired of carrying responsibilities that weren't mine. I started noticing details I had ignored before. My brother's mood swings, his obsession with status, his constant comparisons to friends who lived more comfortably. I remembered how he used to tell me he felt trapped in our life, how he dreamed of leaving the city and becoming someone important. At the time, I had laughed and told him dreams were expensive. Now I realized he had taken that sentence literally. One evening, he asked me to sit with him on the balcony. The city lights flickered below us like nervous stars. He confessed he had borrowed money from people outside the family as well. My stomach tightened. He said some of them weren't patient or kind. Suddenly, his reckless spending didn't seem childish anymore. It felt dangerous. I felt torn between protecting him and protecting myself. I wanted to tell him he had crossed a line that couldn't be erased, but I also saw the fear behind his arrogance. For the first time, I understood that his betrayal wasn't just about money. It was about identity, pride, and desperation. The situation escalated when one of his creditors came to our door. He was polite but persistent, speaking in a calm tone that made his threats more terrifying. My parents panicked. My mother begged me to fix the situation because I was the responsible one. The words cut deeper than any insult. I confronted my brother again, this time without shouting. I told him I would help him only if he agreed to face the consequences honestly. He laughed bitterly and said honesty had never helped anyone in our family. His cynicism frightened me more than his anger. As weeks passed, secrets continued to surface. I discovered he had forged my signature on loan documents. I discovered he had lied to relatives, telling them I controlled the money and refused to help him. My reputation slowly eroded in whispers and sideways glances at family gatherings. I felt like I was fighting on two fronts, against his lies and against my own guilt. One night, after another argument, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection. I looked older, sharper, more tired than I remembered. I realized that my identity had become inseparable from responsibility. I didn't know who I was without the burden of saving everyone else. The turning point came when my brother disappeared for 2 days. He didn't answer calls or messages. My parents blamed me for pushing him away. Relatives speculated about scandals and shame. I searched the city with a mixture of fear and anger, imagining worst-case scenarios. When he finally returned, he looked broken. He admitted he had met with people who wanted their money back immediately. He said he felt trapped between humiliation and danger. For the first time, he cried without sarcasm. His tears weren't dramatic. They were quiet and helpless. Something shifted inside me. I realized that punishment alone wouldn't solve anything, but blind forgiveness would destroy us all. I proposed a plan that terrified everyone. Full transparency, professional counseling, and strict financial boundaries. My parents hesitated. Relatives protested. My brother resisted. But eventually, reality forced agreement. The process was brutal. My brother had to confront his addictions, his lies, and his envy. My parents had to admit their emotional neglect. I had to confront my own control issues and martyr complex. Therapy sessions felt like emotional surgery without anesthesia. Every confession reopened wounds we thought had healed. Gradually, changes emerged. My brother started working part-time and contributing honestly. He apologized, not once, but repeatedly, without excuses. My parents stopped expecting me to fix everything. Relatives slowly realized the truth behind the rumors. Trust returned, not suddenly, but painfully, like bones knitting after fractures. The final confrontation happened months later, during a family gathering. My brother publicly admitted what he had done and thanked me for not giving up on him, even when I had every reason to walk away. His voice trembled, but it didn't break. For the first time, I felt that our conflict had transformed into something meaningful rather than destructive. When I looked at him that night, I didn't see a thief or a victim. I saw a flawed human being shaped by insecurity and pressure, just like me. I understood that love wasn't about silent endurance or explosive anger. It was about drawing boundaries and refusing to disappear for the sake of peace. In the months that followed, our family changed in small but real ways. Money remained tight, but honesty replaced secrecy. Arguments still happened, but they no longer carried the weight of betrayal. My brother and I developed a cautious respect for each other, built not on idealized expectations but on shared accountability. Sometimes I still remembered the night I screamed at him and wondered whether things would have been easier if I had stayed silent. But then I remembered the hidden statements, the lies, the fear, and the slow healing that followed. Silence would have been easier, but it would have destroyed us quietly. I learned that confrontation, when guided by truth rather than pride, could become a form of love. I learned that forgiveness wasn't weakness, and anger wasn't always cruelty. Most importantly, I learned that I wasn't responsible for saving everyone, but I was responsible for refusing to participate in lies. Now, when I stand on the same balcony where he once confessed his fear, I feel a strange calm. The city still flickers below, indifferent to our struggles, but my heart feels less heavy. Our story didn't end with perfect harmony or dramatic separation. It ended with something rarer and harder, honest coexistence. I know my brother may stumble again, and I know I may feel tempted to control everything once more, but I also know that we have crossed a point of no return, not toward destruction, but toward awareness. Our family will never be the same, and for the first time, I'm not afraid of that. In the quiet moments before sleep, I sometimes whisper a truth I once feared to admit. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them ruin you. It means staying present while refusing to lose yourself. And in learning that lesson, I finally understood that my anger had not destroyed our family. It had forced us to grow. The changes did not happen in a straight line. Some mornings my brother woke up optimistic, making breakfast and talking about plans. Other mornings he retreated into silence, scrolling endlessly on his phone as if reality were a burden he could avoid. I learned to read the subtle differences in his posture and tone, sensing when he was fighting temptation or shame. It was exhausting to stay alert, yet strangely empowering, because I finally understood that awareness was different from control. One afternoon, I accompanied him to meet a financial counselor. The office smelled of cheap coffee and disinfectant, a mixture that made me feel nervous. The counselor asked blunt questions about debts, habits, and motivations. My brother hesitated, then answered honestly. Watching him speak without masks felt like witnessing someone remove armor they had worn for years. I realized that courage did not always look heroic. Sometimes it looked like trembling hands and quiet admissions. After the session, he admitted that stealing money had given him a sense of superiority. He said he felt powerful knowing he could manipulate situations without being caught. His words disturbed me, but they also clarified something I had long suspected. His actions were not just mistakes, they were choices rooted in insecurity. Understanding this didn't excuse him, yet it helped me see him as more than a villain. Meanwhile, my own life started shifting in unexpected ways. At work, I began refusing overtime shifts that had once defined my identity. My manager looked surprised, even disappointed, but I felt a strange relief. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future that didn't revolve entirely around survival. I started taking evening walks, listening to music, and reading novels I had abandoned years earlier. These small acts of self-care felt almost rebellious. Our relatives, however, did not change as quickly. At weddings and gatherings, whispers still followed me. Some people treated me with exaggerated sympathy, others with thinly veiled suspicion. My aunt once pulled me aside and asked whether I exaggerated the situation to gain attention. Her words burned, but I resisted the urge to defend myself aggressively. I realized that no explanation would satisfy those who preferred gossip over truth. One night, my brother overheard relatives criticizing me during a family dinner. Instead of staying silent, he defended me. His voice was firm, not dramatic. He admitted his mistakes openly and told them they had judged without understanding. I watched him from across the room, stunned. For years, I had been the one protecting him. Now he was protecting me. That reversal felt more meaningful than any apology. Despite progress, financial pressure remained constant. Bills piled up, unexpected expenses appeared, and our budget felt like a fragile bridge over deep water. Sometimes I felt tempted to take full control again, to restrict my brother's access to money and monitor every transaction. But I resisted. I knew that trust, once rebuilt, could not survive constant surveillance. Instead, we created systems together. Shared spreadsheets, weekly discussions, clear rules about spending and borrowing. These conversations were uncomfortable, but necessary. My brother surprised me with his commitment. He asked questions, suggested improvements, and admitted when he felt tempted to overspend. Our collaboration felt awkward at first, but gradually it transformed into mutual respect. The most difficult moment came when my father lost a temporary job opportunity. Fear returned to our household like an unwelcome guest. My mother started panicking about rent, and my brother offered to take on extra shifts at his workplace. Watching him volunteer to help felt surreal. I realized that responsibility, once forced upon me alone, was slowly becoming a shared burden. Late one evening, my brother and I sat in the living room surrounded by unpaid bills and open laptops. He confessed that he still felt ashamed when he thought about the past. He said he worried that no matter how much he changed, he would always be seen as the one who betrayed us. I told him that memory could be heavy, but it did not have to define the future. As I spoke, I realized I was also talking to myself. The emotional scars didn't disappear. Sometimes, during arguments, old accusations resurfaced. Sometimes I felt a sudden surge of anger when I remembered the nights I cried alone. Sometimes he felt defensive when he sensed judgment in my tone. But instead of exploding, we learned to pause, breathe, and articulate what we were actually feeling. This slow, awkward communication felt more challenging than shouting, yet infinitely more productive. Months later, we attended a therapy session focused on forgiveness. The therapist asked us to describe what forgiveness meant to us. My brother said it meant being given a chance to rebuild his identity. I said it meant being allowed to release resentment without denying pain. As we spoke, I realized that forgiveness was not a single decision, but a continuous process of choosing honesty over comfort. Gradually, our home atmosphere changed. Laughter returned, not as an obligation, but as a genuine response to shared moments. My mother started cooking meals with renewed energy. My father began discussing his fears instead of hiding behind authority. I felt lighter, yet more grounded, as if the emotional weight that once crushed me had transformed into something I could carry without losing balance. One evening, while organizing old documents, I found a notebook from years ago where I had written goals and dreams. Most of them seemed impossible now, but reading them reminded me that I had once imagined a life beyond responsibility. I showed the notebook to my brother. He laughed gently and said he wanted to help me achieve at least one of those dreams. His sincerity surprised me. Inspired by that conversation, I enrolled in a short professional course I had postponed for years. Studying felt strange after so long, but it awakened a part of me I had forgotten. My brother encouraged me, sometimes teasing me, sometimes helping me revise lessons. Our roles continued to shift, blurring the old boundaries between caretaker and dependent. The final test of our transformation arrived unexpectedly when another relative asked my brother for money. In the past, he would have secretly used our shared funds to appear generous. This time, he discussed it with me openly. We analyzed the situation, decided on a reasonable amount, and communicated it transparently. That small decision felt like a victory larger than any dramatic confrontation. Looking back, I realized that the crisis had forced us to confront truths we had avoided for years. Without the betrayal, we might have continued living in polite denial, pretending that love meant silence and sacrifice. Pain had exposed our weaknesses, but it had also revealed our capacity for change. There were still moments when I felt tired of being strong. On those days, I allowed myself to rest without guilt. I stopped equating exhaustion with virtue. Slowly, I learned that my worth did not depend on how much I suffered for others. Today, when I think about the girl I was before everything collapsed, I feel compassion rather than embarrassment. She did the best she could with the emotional tools she had. The woman I am now is not perfect, but she is conscious, honest, and less afraid of conflict. My brother is still imperfect too. He sometimes struggles with envy, sometimes feels tempted by shortcuts. But he faces those impulses instead of hiding them. Watching him grow has taught me that people are not fixed characters in a story. They are evolving beings shaped by fear, hope, and choice. Our family did not become ideal. We still argue, worry about money, and disappoint each other occasionally. Yet our relationships feel more real, less theatrical. We no longer perform harmony for outsiders while suppressing resentment inside. If someone had told me that betrayal could become a doorway to understanding, I would have laughed bitterly. Now I know that crises can destroy or transform, depending on whether we dare to face them honestly. When I sit alone at night, listening to the familiar sounds of our apartment, I feel gratitude mixed with sadness. Gratitude for the growth we achieved. Sadness for the years lost to silence and misunderstanding. But I no longer wish to erase the past. It shaped the clarity I now possess. I understand that love is not measured by sacrifice alone, nor by dramatic gestures of forgiveness. It is measured by the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and remain present through the consequences. And in learning this, I finally made peace with both my anger and my compassion. Sometimes I smile quietly, knowing that our broken story became the foundation of a stronger, more honest future for us.